Hello, everybody. My name's Rick McCutcheon. I'm a Dynamics 365 MVP, and welcome to Digital Adoption Talks. There are over 300,000 business professionals with digital adoption in their title, and this is why we do this show, along with Joachim Schiermacher, the CEO of ClickLearn. We we are going to focus on talking to some of the digital adoption experts in the Microsoft ecosystem, but today we have a very special guest. This week we are thrilled to be talking to Jason Gumpert, editor of editor and co-founder of MS Dynamics World, and we're going to talk about digital adoption growth. Jason, thanks for joining the panel.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so Jason, tell us about the incredible journey you've had with MS Dynamics World over the past, let's say, 15 years, I think it is, and talk a little bit
Yeah.
about what you've done as a journalist in the Microsoft Business Applications community.
Sure, happy to. We just came to that realization that it has been 15 years since we started the site and started building out the business. And it's been a great experience. Myself and my co-founder Adam Bears, we wanted to build a site that and a publication really that focused on what business decision makers care about in the tech world. So obviously, there's plenty of great technology writing and education and content out there. Uh, but what I really enjoy is making sense of the meaning behind some of the technological changes that happen and that continue to evolve over time in the enterprise software space. It's an area that I really enjoy and that we continue to do. And so as Microsoft's technology ecosystem has evolved, we've tried to keep up with it. Everything from the old on-premise Dynamics CRM and ERP days until now, where everything's obviously completely focused on cloud technology and cloud-based implementations and all the complications that come with that. So I'm sure we'll get into it a bit.
And yeah, the site has really grown, and you need a membership, which is free, to join and access the materials. How many members do you have?
We have north of 90,000. I think we may be crossing 100,000 right in the recent weeks actually here.
Excellent.
And and the site's really broken down into two parts. So I'm the editorial director. I'm the editor, and so I focus on all the articles, the news coverage, the thought leadership kind of writing that we do and that our contributors do. And then we have obviously a whole other side, which is like the branded and informational content that our readers will find when they're researching solutions, when they're looking for thought leadership on some of the more challenging matters that they often face in this space.
Okay, Joachim, would you like to add anything?
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have Jason here. I think that the growth of the community just goes to show that this is one of the go-to places if you wanna learn how do you interact within the big business application scope of Microsoft. So
Okay.
I think it's fantastic.
So, Jason, we'll start with a question that, kind of seems obvious. Like the software companies and publishers have been saying software is now easier to use. So why do we see 300,000 digital adoption professionals appearing on LinkedIn? And when I look up on LinkedIn and I look under Microsoft for customer success managers who help customers become successful, that number has grown from just a handful a few years ago to over 6,000 now. So why all the growth in digital adoption?
Yeah, well, for all the change in the technology, for all the change in the software itself, for how it's sold, how it's deployed, ultimately we're still dealing with people and the way they like to work and the way they get their work done. And so I think it shouldn't be any surprise to anyone that the maybe the modes have changed, maybe the exact sort of flow of value has changed somewhat in terms of subscription based revenue and for the vendors and how you calculate ROI if you're an end user and how your business survives as a partner. But ultimately, it's still people and it's still their lives and their work experiences, and that just doesn't change.
Okay. Joachim, would you like to add anything about the growth in digital adoption professionals?
Oh, where do we start, right? I mean, I agree completely with Jason that obviously one of the things that follow the money in terms of the revenue streams. Now, when you go into a subscription-based economy, you're obviously relying on a retention with your clients much more than we used to do. And the barrier for getting out of software is just not there anymore. It's really cheap to get out, and that means that you have to have the stickiness. I think that when you've watched Microsoft's journey in terms of what are they actually measuring their business on, I think that you can see that there's been a transition inside Microsoft towards having better customer experiences and obviously driving better customer engagement. Uh, because it makes sense, right? I mean, they used to monitor, be able to measure people on how much consumption do you have, but it's really a vehicle of how well is the software adopted within an enterprise. So getting that focus right, I think, is part of the explanation. And the 300,000 out there, it's a new world in terms of how the enterprises are running software. There's so much software in our hands today. We're not, we don't have that monolithic approach to anything. So we're not implementing SAP across the board. So it handles our CRM. We are getting in best of breed applications, smaller applications, specific purpose applications. And that means that, the entire journey of how do we successfully bring our users up to speed in each of these little pieces of software is now becoming a really big task. So I think those are some of the drivers, at least.
Instead of having a big ERP project or a big CRM project, there's this whole click, try, buy component out there, right? Where a user can go and click, try, and buy something and really make that determination whether, do I want to use this interface? Is this
Yeah.
working for me? How hard was it to install? And they're taking a lot of that decision-making process right out of the hands of the IT department. It's going towards the end user customer. So I think the software publishers are saying we got to make sure that user is happy. And on the other side, I think within a customer, I think there's a lot of pressure that, you gave me this big system and it's so cumbersome. Look what I can do on my phone, right? I think that's starting to play an effect, and what people are expecting out of applications is really changing.
Yeah, I think there's a new generation coming up as well, right? I mean that they just don't have the attention span of bad software that doesn't really work.
Jason, would you like to add anything?
The one other thought I had with this huge number, I mean 300,000 people who call themselves digital adoption professionals, it to me it says either it's been sort of normalized in the marketplace that you do need to invest in that kind of resource when you're investing in digital applications, and so that demand has driven the need for that role, and so there's a lot more of them out there now than there used to be. Or that people just continue to struggle, and the need is driven by just the pain that people are still feeling. I'm not sure which one of those it is, but either way, I think it does, whether it's the tail wagging the dog or not, it does signify that there is this this need for and this pursuit of better digital adoption, because I think without it, those people would just go away and they change their title to whatever other professional role they're going to move into next.
Okay, Joachim.
Well, one of the things that we can see with this, that when the application stack grows, right, it also means that clients are becoming more and more unique. So the traditional way of saying, again, going back to SAP, we'll train your entire operation, every single process you have, because we're bringing technology to support everything, right? That's not happening anymore. So with the very small special purpose applications, we can see that clients are now getting a unique footprint just by having specific pieces of software installed. And it's now up to a quantity where it's a task that cannot be undertaken by any single vendor, because their processes take them cross platforms. So it's no longer just a vendor problem. It becomes a client problem now. That the client needs to have these digital adoption specialists that can take the entire journey across all their software portfolio and make a coherent proposition to the client and or the end users on how do you actually train in this, how do you adopt these many different pieces of software, and how do they interact inside our application space. So definitely a lot of these are inside the enterprises. That's I think is a trend that we're going to see much more in the future. So we'll have in each IT department there will be a digital adoption specialist in there, and then obviously the vendors also being asked now. You need to bring up your A game. It's not about getting us into a classroom training. It's not working for us because with the 178 vendors we have inside our business, we are probably going to be doing nothing but training them the entire year round, and it's not working. So a new methodology is needed. And I think this is what digital adoption professionals are bringing to the table.
Now, these are all good points. So, the next question, how is this really affecting the business of a Microsoft partner? Right? Because I think at one time we had a big server to install, we get the software going, get it running on the network. And, not every partner, but a lot of times I would see, we've got the software installed. Now let's get out of Dodge, right? And head to the next project we're working on. So where are we seeing changes in the way partners go to market? And I'll start with you, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft is really the perfect place to focus this conversation because so many of the changes in their strategy and what they expect from partners falls right into this conversation. Yeah, it was, like you said, in the on-premises world, it was possible to sort of drop in some CDs, do some installs and leave, and maybe not find out for months, years, sort of how well that all turned out. That's just not the case anymore. Partners are being measured on by Microsoft on consumption. Microsoft itself is measuring itself on consumption. I think analysts are measuring Microsoft on consumption. So, the idea that you can deploy software that's not going to be well adopted is really not tenable these days, and that just flows all the way down. So I think partners are incentivized in the Microsoft ecosystem as the products have changed, as their incentives have changed from Microsoft, to really put that work in and be able to offer their clients something more than just dropping the software in and leaving. If they want to have a viable business, if they want to have customers that don't, as Joachim, as you said, that don't just walk away and find another partner, which is so much easier to do in a cloud-based world than it was before. And just the product. I mean, we can get into this more. I won't go too much further, but the products themselves that Microsoft's offering, especially in the BizApps world, boy, it can be so granular and so atomic now with different apps for different departments, different teams, that the idea that adoption is going to be broad-based, that it's not going to have to continue to evolve over month to month, year to year, it's just not realistic anymore.
Well, just the fact that, I used to go into my Dynamics, into my email, into my SharePoint, right? Now I can access everything through a Teams interface. And that sounds simple, but, if I've been doing it the other way for 10 years, it's not so simple.
No, it's not. Right. And the problem is also that the idea that now the conversations are spreading out throughout the Microsoft universe. We have conversations going on inside your Outlook. You have conversations going inside team channels, right? And it becomes a little more difficult to actually find out where did that piece of information drop. And there's a lot about the information architecture. And this, I think, is a unique partner opportunity to get in and actually say, look, this is how you're supposed to utilize these tools. Because right now we are basically giving them 50 different ways to share information without a really coherent strategy around where do you do what. And I can see that inside my business. The most commonly asked questions, where's that again? Is that in SharePoint? Is it in my Outlook? Or did you send it by mail, or did you drop it into some channel, right? And that's like the best place to hide a corpse in a business, right? So that's dropping it inside a Teams channel. Then you're sure you're never going to find that.
Yeah, or just the way that processes can devolve in that way, like you're saying there. I mean, I was just reading just a general news piece on this fintech, massive fintech business that's collapsing, and some of the things that are coming out in their bankruptcy hearing is like, expense approvals with emojis rather than
Yes.
rather than documenting it, right?
Yeah.
Great user experience if you need your expenses approved, but what a disaster for the company and
Yeah.
for the lenders, I guess in this case since it's bankruptcy. But yeah, everything in between is possible from super detailed, awful looking expense report interfaces to emojis.
Okay, great. So Joachim, Jason, thanks for today and coming on the show to talk about digital adoption. Jason, do you have any closing thoughts?
From the Microsoft perspective, or following the Microsoft world, I guess you would say these things are super relevant, and there's so much. As I started to say before, there's so much pressure on both the buyers of cloud-based technology and the people who are deploying it, the partners who are trying to maintain those relationships um, to keep it vibrant and healthy and keep those the people behind it, the actual people who are responsible for making these businesses run, keep them happy and sane. And the need for good healthy adoption is as critical as it ever was in the on-prem world. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a fun discussion.
Okay, thanks. Joachim.
No, I think that we've covered almost everything in this conversation. I think that going back to the idea that software is now easier to use, it might be a little bit, but it's not it's not light years ahead of what it was 10, 15 years ago. But it might be a little bit easier to use. But now take in the quantity of what we're dropping on our users' heads. Take that into account as well. Then you're going to see it's you're not making the user's day any easier by dropping in new pieces of technology every 4 weeks. So there's definitely a need for driving a user adoption strategy across the entire enterprise and with the partners.
Okay, Joachim, Jason, thank you for today. And I'm sure we'll be back to you in the near future to talk more about digital adoption and what's going on with MS Dynamics World. Have a great day.